We're calling on the federal government to intervene in the actions that's happening in Fiji. Australian tourists are at risk because of untrained staff being engaged. There's been serious accidents that have already occurred where people have been hospitalised in Fiji because of a lockout supported by the Fijian government of hundreds of workers at Fiji airport. This is a critical issue for the Australian community. It's a critical issue for the federal government to make sure that Australian travellers are safe when they arrive in Fiji, and that cannot be guaranteed during this lockout that could go on for many weeks and even months.
What is the problem? What is happening on the ground in Fiji that untrained people without security clearance are actually getting access to secure areas? What's happening?
Well, the Fijian government is bringing in untrained and attempting to get overseas workers, including from Australia, to work in Fiji airport whilst they're locking out hundreds of workers that have been protesting over a 11-year wage freeze and a series of ongoing sexual harassment attacks by senior management in a government-controlled enterprise at Fiji airport. Now, this is a critical piece of infrastructure for Fiji. It means that there's going to be disruptions for the travelling public for many weeks and even months to come. It's a fair warning to everybody going to Fiji. There's untrained staff, it's insecure and untrained staff that do not have security clearances, and there's quite clearly a disruption that will continue to occur in Fiji for many weeks and months to come. The federal government has a responsibility to defend the human rights of those workers, not issue visas to travelling scabs from either Australia or transit through Australia to Fiji, but also to make sure that the travelling public from Australia and Australian nationals are safe when they arrive in an unsafe environment in Fiji.
So you're actually saying that people considering travelling to Fiji should reconsider?
Well, it's quite clear that people travelling to Fiji should reconsider because of the disruptions. There's no food, there's untrained staff, there's already been people hospitalised because of the poor performance of the operations there now since the lockout began. And this disruption and protest will only get more militant as the weeks and months go on.
What about your own members here in Australia? I mean, is there support for what's happening in Fiji?
Well, the International Transport Federation and the Transport Workers Union of Australia and many unions around the country and around the world will be looking at taking direct action against Fiji in support of these basic human rights, 11-year wage freeze, a lockout because of workers going to a shareholders meeting were locked out by the company and by the support of the government. And now we're seeing serious cases of sexual harassment, untrained staff being employed, and security risks right out on the doorstep of Australia and a major destination for Australian tourists at Fiji's major airport.
Can you see this issue getting resolved and people actually able to book flights and stuff to Fiji?
Look, I'd be very clearly warning all Australian tourists to reconsider going to Fiji. The disruptions, the likely increased militancy because of the aggressive nature of the government's attack on hundreds of local Fijians and their attempt to bring in outside workers, even from Australia, means that the dispute will be going on for weeks and months. It would not be the right time to travel to Fiji unless you'll find yourself in the middle of a very militant action by the government, and certainly a response will be taking place by the workforce themselves and the local communities.